Hello, welcome to another briefing. So in this briefing, I'm going to start out with the current conditions. We're going to look at the satellite. We can see here for the um, west coast of the United States, we're looking at this next weather system starting to make its way in. After a very dry January, we're starting to finally see the return of some rain, some real winter weather here in February. Starting with the Pacific Northwest, of course, we have had a pretty significant rainy system into Seattle and then into Portland. Now we got most of that rain focused in Oregon and parts of Northern California. We can see the stream of moisture here all the way from basically the Hawaiian Islands out up to into parts of Oregon and Washington. And if I put the radar overlay, you're gonna see where the rain is falling. You can see rain well into Oregon and then also parts of Northern California here. If I do this playback here, you'll see here's that system yesterday into Seattle and Portland. Quite a good amount of rain there. And then you see this next system here. You see just that hose of moisture. That's what we call an atmospheric river. It's a term that's existed in meteorology for a long time. It just gets thrown around a lot now, and it just causes a lot of buzz and stuff, but it makes it seem like something new, but it's actually something that's atmospheric rivers are happening all the time across the globe. They're just narrow bands of moisture that are pointing in one direction, and if you get right under one of these for several days, you can have problems with flooding and such. But it's not like this alien monster thing that it can be painted out to be. It's just a meteorological phenomena that's been happening for many centuries. So we go here, we see this rain starting to sag south. You see this line. This is basically where the jet is dividing the warm air and cold air. And you can see that we have a troughing pattern starting to want to set up because we have more troughing out over the Pacific. We have the jet stream starting to dip a little more. And that is going to allow this band of rain, this essentially a boundary zone in between the warmer air and the colder air to really set up, and then you'll start to get cold fronts here that will eventually push further south and east. And so, but that's the foundation is there now. We've taken a look at the satellite and the radar, and that's giving us a picture from above of what's happening right now. Because we wanna understand the current conditions as best as possible before we dive into the model guidance. So there's that, and then I'm also going to show you a camera shot from just north of the Crescent City area in Northern California. You can clearly see rain is occurring at this location. You see raindrops on the camera right there, so we can verify that. And then here is the GFS archive for. We can go back to yesterday afternoon here. It's as far back as close to date as we can get. But what we're seeing here is exactly what I was mentioning when I was picking up our satellite images. We can see this, looking at basically the pressure heights at 18,000 feet, which, to put it simply, is telling you where the colder air columns and where the warmer air columns are. To put it very simply. And you can see here, there's this ridge of high pressure, the warmer air, that has been breaking down. All right, let's go further back so I can show this. So go back 4 days ago, and you can see this massive ridge of high pressure out here, just dominating the western states, just sending all this storm activity way to the north. So here's a trough here, and all this storm stuff gets way to northern Canada. But look at what happens next. It starts to break down. We had a weak little cutoff system a few days ago. Kind of started that. And look at this ridge start to shift further east and get more broken down. And see, it tries to rebuild a little bit here. So this is blowing up. Oh shoot, okay, my bad. I just changed that unintentionally. Here we go. And you can see here, see it starts to try to rebuild, but this little piece of energy that broke into Southern California on Friday, it's kind of allowing this ridge to break down enough or just weaken that this next trough here off of the Pacific Northwest is able to start to make its move. So now we've looked at that and we have an understanding of why this ridge is starting to break down. So we go into the models and we see the evolution of this trough. It'll make sense now. We're not just looking at a computer painting a bunch of stuff. We're looking at the initial conditions that are leading to that. And I think that if you don't look at the initial conditions, as my professor would say, you're stripping yourself of the fun, because you would just be looking at guidance, and you don't even have a basis of understanding of, like, take a look at what's happening with the atmosphere right now, and then find the pattern on the satellite, find the pattern on the models, and then you can make some more sense of the model guidance and what it's hinting at and why it's hinting at that. So we can start to see already from the current height analysis that this ridge is starting to break down. So I'm going to go ahead and put this is a trough of low pressure, and that is starting to break this ridge. And we'll continue to do so. Now let's take a look at the guidance. This is basically what we were looking at. The shaded colors are the heights aloft, and then you also have surface pressure. See, high pressure over here, there's low pressure over here, and the black lines are surface pressure lines. And we also call them isobars, as they are known in meteorology. It's isobars. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain that. So I'm going to go ahead and show this projection here as we go through the day to day. You can see that ridge is continuing to break down. The pattern, it's basically the ridge is starting to flatten. You see this red zone where the jet stream is. It's pushing further south as we expected. And then by the time we get into Tuesday, this develops a pretty good storm. Surface low up, riding up the coast. That starts to impact the west coast. That starts to impact parts of California. If we go into the precipitation view here, starting out today, you can see that rain into Northern California. And then here's that a little bit of a break tomorrow. Little short wave. That ridge just tries its last few attempts to rebuild, and it just gets completely pushed out by this trough that really comes in with more power. On Tuesday, see that rain on Tuesday would have that system, and now this is just a projection. I take this with a grain of salt. But if this were to verify, you'd see another little dry break. The ridge sort of tries to nudge back in, but it's not very well established. It's more of a short wave. It's just a short, just be a little bit of drying, and then we would have a pretty powerful next system. And look at how far this cold air gets down. Look at the jet is basically down here. This colder air columns in blue. You're seeing these pushing way farther south. So this is a push of cold air, and there's moisture here linking up with it. So this would be some pretty low snow. I mean, this is a week out. Take it with a grain of salt. But if something like this were to verify, there's enough cold air to get snow down to maybe 3,000 feet, which is enough to go down to some Bay Area hills and even down into Southern California, some pretty low snow. because you get this deep trough and you continue to have moisture pumping in here from the west. And you can see how much snow is depicted here. You can get some pretty good snow amounts with this kind of setup. I don't want to go too far into the future, but the pattern, when you're looking at a model projection over a week out, we try to just look at the pattern. It's not going to get it right in the timing of each system and the intensity when you're looking this far out, but you're going to be able to see a pattern, and you can clearly see the pattern that the storm door goes wide open again when you get into mid-February, because you're looking at ridging is way offshore. There's a ridge out here, way offshore, and there's a ridge over the middle of the country, over the plains right here. So in between those, you have a big trough. And that trough is going to allow all these storm systems that were getting deflected, we're going up and over the ridge, we were going up into Canada. Now they're spilling straight down from the Gulf of Alaska into the West Coast. And it's one system after another. I'll play this back again. Look at this, one system after another into the West Coast. And these are cold systems too. Mind you, you're staying in the cold sector of the jet stream as these spin up. And that means that you're going to have plenty of cold air to work with for some low snow levels. It won't be that kind of pattern we had in January where we had, or late December, early January, before the dry spell, where we had kind of a stagnant pattern with storms riding up consistently, but from the southwest on the warm side of the jet stream. So we were just getting very warm very warm storms with very high snow levels in the mountains. Now this will be different with a colder air mass in place, with the jet taking more of a dip as those waves of moisture come in. Will be on the cold side. We'll get much lower snow. So that's what the trend is looking like. Let's not get into intensity or amounts when we're this far out on a global computer model. But I will say, it's looking like a pattern change. Now we can take a quick look at a higher resolution model. Let's look at the NAM model for precipitation for California. So we're going to do reflectivity type. This is basically a simulated radar. We'll show where it should be raining and snowing over the next 60 hours. And as we go through today, Northern California, rain, maybe some snow for the higher elevation. That cold air hasn't really pushed in yet. Then we go tomorrow, kind of a dry break, a little activity as we go tomorrow night into Tuesday over the Sierras. Snow level looks like about maybe 5,500 feet still, not super low. And then here's that Tuesday system. This model goes just out until about Tuesday morning when that next wave of rain is just starting to come in. And if we put this time frame on the European model, you see still as we're getting into the edge of that trough here, so the cold air is still starting to come in. It's not really in yet. As we go further into Tuesday, you'll notice that colder air will start to come in more and we'll start to drop those snow levels. And then it's really the next round of systems starting next weekend that's going to really, looks like it's going to really push that cold air down. And all these models have been showing this consistently for a few days, so we can say with more confidence, not complete confidence, but we can say with more confidence that this is likely to happen. And if you compare to different models too, like let's compare this to the GFS, you can see a similar pattern on the GFS. Amounts and timing is going to be different, but the general pattern is similar. Looking out towards the 15th, 16th, the GFS wants a similar kind of thing with nice cold systems, nice big dip in the jet with moisture spinning up along those cold lows out of the Gulf of Alaska, those little short waves that are embedded in that colder air. So that's what you like to see. Nice pattern change. We'll definitely keep an eye on that as we get closer to these events. We'll have updated model runs and updated high resolution model runs, and we'll be able to have a better picture of what that rain could probably look like as it comes in. Um, and like I said, this first system on Tuesday is not super powerful, but it is something. We'll probably get moderate rain, maybe some heavier rain pockets in some areas, but I think we're really looking at the uh, the next system on next weekend for that storm door to really really open up, and that cold air as well. So that's all I have for today. I hope you're able to get something out of this. I hope it was helpful. Um, Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.